From Hollywood, it's Jimmy Kimmel Live tonight.
Hey, what up, everybody? It's the Green Ranger back at it with everyone's favorite YouTube content, The Jimmy Kimmel Show, with our special guest, Eli, Hero of Tomorrow Stone. How's it going, man?
Just fine, Swigga. What's up?
Nothing much, just doing what I do. So, we are going to be talking with one of the OG reviewers, going all the way back to... Actually, that kind of leads into the first question. What was life like for you before you started making content and before you became a YouTuber?
Well, most of it was just getting through high school, because I started making content when I was in my senior year of high school. That was 2009. So around then and slightly after that, when I first started college, was when I started getting more active as a video producer, because that's when I started getting more into them, and I thought that maybe I could try my hand at it.
2009 was the first year for you as a content creator, and that was on YouTube, and that was when YouTube was an entirely different beast. That was back when the only thing we had to worry about on YouTube was Time Warner taking down copyrighted music. Now YouTube is a whole other fucking beast entirely.
And now we have to worry about several music companies taking down things.
Universal Music Group is the big one. You started making videos. What would you say was your biggest inspiration? And this goes for, like, you know, your pre-Cartoon Hero series, and even into Cartoon Hero. What was some of the biggest inspirations for you to want to make YouTube videos yourself?
Well, before the Cartoon Hero started, I started myself out as a bit more of a ranter, and I was inspired by the likes of Big Al and KHF, as I mentioned in my latest video. Those were the people that I wanted to emulate at first. But eventually I started getting more into the reviewing community, courtesy of a certain website that I don't like to talk about anymore. Basically, when that happened, I went through several different stages of becoming a YouTuber. I tried doing rants, doing commentaries, but even back then, I was occasionally doing reviews every so often. And the more I started to focus on reviews, the more I realized that's what I like to do. So that's what I decided to keep. That's where I decided to start pouring all of my resources into.
What exactly would you say was the big inspiration behind the whole cartoon hero, superhero reviewing things persona? Where exactly did that come from?
Well, it came from a different variety of areas. First off, I was like I said before, the idea of the hero being a hero with the powers of a cartoon, that came from a couple of different places. Obviously, big influence was Roger Rabbit, but there was also Beautiful Joe, which had a similar idea behind it. So I put the two together and decided that if there was a human who had the powers of a cartoon, then maybe I could use that as a gimmick to be a cartoon reviewer. Because I also was around that time noticing that kind of the big trend among angry reviewers is to make, which were the popular ones at the time, is to make your character an asshole. And I'm like, that's not what I want to be. I want to be a guy that you can sort of look up to. So I made my character the underdog. I was sort of going for a kind of Booster Gold style, the character that the superhero that nobody takes seriously. So, but at the same time, he still wants to do the right thing.
Because this is one of those review shows, kind of talked a little bit about this with Morgan from Vaulting when we did that episode, that obviously reviewing has kind of evolved and kind of taken on a life of its own, and obviously one of the big things in the early days of reviewing was the whole storyline segment, and that was a big part of your show, is you had a lot of the storylines and the reoccurring characters and stuff on your show.
Yeah, because one of the bigger inspirations for me as a reviewer was Linkara, and I made no secret of that. Basically, if I'm going to create this character, I want to also use him to tell a story. The way that I'm going to say it, it's going to sound like it's easy to be a content creator. It really isn't. But the thing is, if you just become one of them, like anyone, if they get the video making techniques down and find an audience, they can be one of those generic YouTube reviewers that just talks to their webcam. And that's fine for some people, but I don't want to just be another one of those reviewers in a sea of other reviewers like them. I want to actually use my character to do something.
Speaking of, so basically, like you said, your whole thing was that you reviewed cartoons, animation, and you had a bunch of different segments on your shows. Your main segments were obviously reviews, like just regular reviews where you go through the movie. Some were positive, some were negative, and you had a whole system for which ones were which. You had versus, which was for bad, and can you explain a little bit of that?
Well, that idea obviously came from The Tick, because every episode of The Tick was The Tick versus the enemy of the day. So I decided to make all of the negative reviews the cartoon hero versus that movie, and all of the positive reviews, which I honestly kind of wish that I had set up a system where I could put the meh reviews in. So I just decided to call those the cartoon hero reviews later on, because it was just good and bad, presents and verses. And I kind of regret not doing that sooner, because occasionally I would review movies that were just meh, and I didn't know how to feel about them. And after that, there came From Cartoons to Crap, where I reviewed bad adaptations of cartoons. And occasionally I would stretch the limits of that, because there were some that weren't direct adaptations, like The Cat in the Hat was technically based on the book, but I know it better from the DePatie Freeling short, which is a much better adaptation of it, by the way.
If you're a Seuss fan and you still think he's groovy, do yourself a favor and please avoid this movie. The acting's barely passable and with much wasted potential, even with an actor of Mike Myers' credentials. The jokes are too dirty, the costumes too poor, and the pointless cameos are an eyesore.
So I decided to try that, because there were some that I legitimately wanted to talk about. Like, I'm actually still pretty proud of the first From Cartoons to Crap review that I did on Ben 10 Race Against Time, because that was, I used to be a big fan of the original Ben 10 when it was on, and that was just an awful movie. And while I've slowly lost interest in that franchise, it still bothers me that the first live action movie they got was such a wasted potential, and the second one just made me angry.
This is not what I think of when I think of Ben 10. I think evil aliens or supernatural enemies, snappy dialogue, great fight scenes, and above all, I think of being entertained, which this movie sorely failed to do.
I also have The Art of Gaming, which I covered video games that usually the ones that I feel are underrated, because there are enough negative game reviewers out there.
Right? It all started with Angry Video Game Nerd, and then slowly it trickled down. Then you got the irate gamers and the game dudes, and PewDiePie got popular like around 2012. I feel like that was kind of when the whole like reviewer personality like thing kind of sizzled out in terms of like YouTube, but obviously we all had our own little audiences that kept along and kept up with that kind of stuff.
I like to say that I'm not exactly a YouTuber. I'm just a reviewer. There are certain things that YouTube has done recently, like the copyright bullshit, the COPPA bullshit. I'm like, okay, you're going to steadily limit what kind of content I can put on your site and make any kind of presence there. And people wonder why my channel is full of fucking trailers, because I'm like, I'm not going to play YouTube's game. I'm going to put my stuff out elsewhere, and I'm going to still make the content that I want. That's why my channel's full of trailers.
Oh, and that leads into the next point of going from different website to website. So what was the first website you used? Because I remember in the one I did with Patrick, and I think the one with Lindsay, Blip was the big one. You were on Blip, right? Yes,
I was, but I think I got in on that pretty late, honestly. That was after a lot of people had that guy with the glasses reviewers had well established their presence there. Yeah, my first videos were uploaded to Blip, but I didn't really advertise it that much. Like usually the only people who knew about my stuff on Blip were the people on the That Guy with the Glasses forums, because that's really the only place I advertised it. But eventually I decided that I would start cross-promoting it with my YouTube channel. So that didn't happen until around 2011 or 2012. Honestly, I really do think that Blip, we really didn't know how good we had it until the rug was pulled out from under us when it comes to Blip. Because, yeah, Blip didn't... I think I made like $30 a month if I was lucky from Blip. But but still, that was pretty good, especially considering that YouTube pays even less. And then there was the whole bullshit that happened when Maker bought out Blip, and after that, I started uploading to Dailymotion instead. For a while, that was fine, but well, sort of, because Dailymotion has its own problems with copyright. The thing is with YouTube, usually if a video gets taken down, there are ways that you can dispute that sometimes. They don't always work, but YouTube will usually let you know if something is wrong with if something is quote unquote wrong with your video. And that's not the case for Dailymotion. Basically, if you upload something that's by a certain company and one of their bots find it, poof, it is gone. Like there is like they'll send you an email about it, but they won't give you a chance to dispute it. They'll just say, no, your video's violating copyright. It's gone. Because of Dailymotion being unreliable, I eventually started a Vimeo channel, and that was basically to upload the stuff that got taken down off of Dailymotion. And then Dailymotion basically said, no, Article 13 is getting passed, and our headquarters is in France, so we're going to randomly jettison all of our creators, at least some of the creators that decided to take up residence here. So basically, I got an email one day that said, hey, you're on your own, fuckface. So I basically, luckily, because of the whole Blipocalypse thing, I had kept a backup of literally every review I'd ever done after that. But the thing is with that is, there were a couple of reviews in Season 3 that I did not get the complete files from Blip, and I didn't know that until it was too late, which explains why I had to remake a couple of them later on. But that did give me a chance to revisit some of my older reviews and make them better, so I think that was kind of a double-edged sword. And also I tried the whole BitChute thing, but honestly, their player isn't very good, and there's too many Nazis there.
She hasn't slept since 1945. Shut your cake hole, you Nazi!
So eventually, I just decided, no, I'm not going to go there.
While you were making your Cartoon Hero videos for all this time, you've done a fair amount of collaboration videos and crossovers with a bunch of other content creators. What would you say are some of your favorites, some of your favorite reoccurring people to work with?
Some of them were obvious, like Diamanda Hagen. She actually helped me flesh out my character quite a bit more, because the Cartoon Hero didn't really have a nemesis at first, but basically after I found out about Diamanda Hagen, I started working with her, and I was like, hey, can I add your character to the lore of my series? And that's where the whole Cartoon Hero comic backstory came from. So I basically was able to flesh out the hero's origin and kind of give him a looming thread in the background, even though I do keep up with Hagen's reviews. She's still a great content creator. And as for the other people I've worked with, a lot of the ones that I like to work with the most were the ones that ended up on Reviewers Unknown with me. I work with Jeff, Writer's Block, a lot. I work with Rowdy quite a bit. There were a couple. And the Media Hunter, without his help, I wouldn't be able to do quite a few of the things that I wanted to do for my show. Part of being a low-budget show, unfortunately, is that unless you're very creative with it, there's not a lot of things you can do with the special effects. But when I made friends with Isaac, and he started helping me out with my show, then he could animate some of the battles that I couldn't do in live action. And granted, it is using World of Warcraft, and Blizzard has proven itself to be pretty awful in recent years, but it still helped me out a great deal. And all of the people that I work with are usually people that I know and I'm already on good terms with. So honestly, the people on Reviewers Unknown and Diamanda Hagen are the people that I relished working with the most. I also am proud of a cameo that I got from Nash back in the day for my Balto review.
While you were doing Cartoon Hero, and even as you've recently ended it, you also have a bunch of other videos that you've been doing, and some of these you did congruently while you were doing these reviews. Some of your older content, other shows that you had that were kind of outside of the whole Cartoon Hero series, you had videos where you were reading Fanfiction and you did commentaries. You want to talk a little bit about those?
The thing about the commentaries is that I don't regret doing at least most of them. Like, you can't see some of the Confused Matthew commentary anymore because of music copyright, but I don't regret talking about the Lion King reviews because, in my opinion, they're still awful. I mean, even now I can say that the Lion King is not a perfect film, but the way that Confused Matthew looked at it was just horribly disingenuous. He did it in such an awful way that and I was like, do you even know anything about how writing works? And the thing is, he acts like he does.
I mean, it's a little kid who just lost a parent. That has a default setting of being generally sad. But since we don't like Simba, and we didn't know Mufasa very well, it's just really hard to care about this in any way except just generally.
Are you made of stone? First off, your constant insistence that Simba is unlikable is not true. Second, we sort of knew Mufasa. And third, how is it not sad that a father sacrificed his life to save his son?
I've heard that Confused Matthew has gotten better in recent years, but I haven't bothered to check, honestly. The problem with doing commentaries is that I was also trying to be part of that community at the time, and the thing about the commentary community is it's much less cohesive than the reviewer community. There are a lot of people who are... There are some groups of friends, yes, but if you expect the community to like you as a whole, then it's probably not going to. Because they turned on me pretty quickly. Like, I did make a couple of friends in the commentary community, like Savage Broadcast, but I never really felt at home there. And I'm honestly really glad that I decided to abandon that.
Yeah, because commentary videos have changed over time. Like, back then, commentary videos were mostly people using, like, anime avatars and stuff like that, and still images.
Which I did.
Oh, you did?
I used Death the Kid and later Lloyd Irving for some of them later.
And now, like, I think this is a super old reference for YouTubers, but, I mean, when Leafy is Here got popular, it seemed like the new big thing was, instead of that, it was to use gameplay footage, and I feel like commentary even evolved past that. After a certain point, especially after iDubbbz did the content cop on Leafy, which, RIP video, it's got taken down because of YouTube. Ever since then, it feels like the commentary channels that were popular alongside Leafy, like Pyrocynical and stuff, like they kind of nixed that and they started using Facecam. And even then, it seems like those channels are getting sick of doing commentary videos because even those people get sick about talking about, oh, look at the dumb shit Jake Paul and Logan Paul and KSI and Rice Gum have done. And it feels like some of those people have moved on towards talking about, seems like those people have gone more the route of talking about entertainment. Like those people have gone on to do movie reviews, game reviews, and all that kind of stuff. So commentary channels feel like they've evolved in a certain way over time. And the style of humor has gotten different. But it's like you said, it feels like commentary kind of sizzled out.
I think that the inherent problem with doing a commentary is that you're sort of presenting yourself as the antagonist in a way. Like either you're talking about a video that everyone has talked about, or you're basically verbally attacking someone who is probably on the same level you are as a YouTuber. And even if you're right, if you present yourself in a bad way, that's going to reflect a lot more poorly on you than it does on them. Because a lot of commentaries I saw in the past were on kids. I think that's one of the reasons that M Skull quit, although the less said about him, the better. But anyway, going back to the whole fanfiction reading thing, eventually, it's kind of like with what Bennett the Sage said about doing masterpiece fanfic theater. Eventually, it just stopped getting fun. I mean, there are some fanfics that I still want to talk about, and I might do that for a future podcast episode. Reading them out isn't that much fun anymore, although I will occasionally still do them for like a Halloween special or something like that. It's still kind of fun when I found either a hidden gem like Silent Ponyville or I decided to go back to something that I used to read a lot in when I was a teenager, like the Terrible Secret of Animal Crossing.
Yeah, you got a point about the whole fanfic thing, because that's another thing where it was YouTube back in the day. Fanfic reading videos were very popular, and yes, we say this as a channel that actively has Pony Fanboy Reads. Yes, we know, but yeah, it seems like every so often YouTubers do fanfic readings, and it's usually fanfics based on them. Like, it's fanfics that people write about them. So a lot of the time it's shipfics, too. Like, a lot of people like to write them hooking up with other YouTubers or the author themselves. It's really weird, but like you said, it feels like fanfiction reviews and stuff like that have kind of, like, sizzled out as well.
I'm with the fanfic critic on that. The fanfics that ship real people together are always had an extra layer of skeezy to me. There are still some people that look at fanfiction, like Jenny Nicholson. She still does fanfiction reviews. Most of them talk about the weird stuff that people find on Wattpad. Some of those are actually published novels, which is just mind-blowing.
What the fuck is up with that? If we could take a second right now, what the fuck is up with Wattpad all of a sudden? It's like, I remember when 50 Shades of Grey first got popular, it was like, this was Twilight fanfiction that somehow got turned into like a novel. That's fucked up. There are some fucking Netflix adaptations of some of these books that are based on Wattpad stories. What the fuck is up with that, Netflix?
I mean, I guess if Gwyneth Paltrow can get a show based on her quote unquote health company, then I guess Netflix will get anything a green light.
That was content you were doing, and eventually you stopped doing it. And then, while you were wrapping up Cartoon Hero, you also had a bunch of other newer content that you're still actively making. The two ones that I've listed are, you have your food videos, which are Hero of Tasting, and you also started a podcast, the We Are Here podcast. And let's talk a little bit about those. So where exactly did these come from?
Well, the food tasting idea basically came from other reviewers that I had watched that occasionally did Let's Tries. I did get a little bit of inspiration from Brad Jones, but there were other people like Ashens who did it a lot. And honestly, like I said in the last one, I'm probably going to cut down on those because I have decided to actively try and slim down myself starting this year. So I'm not going to be eating as much weird, gross stuff. As for the podcast, well, the We Are Here podcast was basically started to, if I wanted to talk about something that was either outside of my jurisdiction or basically just something that I wanted to ramble on about for a bit, I decided that if I wanted to do that, I'd start my own podcast, and that was based on a podcast that a friend of mine has called Thespian Talk.
Howdy, everybody, and welcome to Thespian Talk, the first one of 2019, and, oh god, the first one in a few months. I am your host, Gomer the Ranting Thespian, and with me is Aaron Mills, aka Dubious Khan.
You can just call me Aaron from now on. I've retired the nickname.
Okay. Hey, we got an update to that. Good.
From Gomer21XX. He does a podcast where he and a couple of other co-hosts basically talk about stuff that's in the news. Like, it's kind of like What the Fuck Is Wrong With You, where they riff on some of the weirder news stories that have come out. but they also just talk about general news. That's general news, and they're not afraid to get political either. So that's kind of a warning. That's kind of a warning for if you want to check them out. But I think they're pretty good about it. The We Are Here podcast was basically for stuff that I wanted to do that wasn't just your typical cartoon reviews. Because there are some other things that I do want to talk about. Oddly, most of them have been manga reviews. I guess that just goes to show how much I misread right to left.
We Are Here podcast, the new best place to get your local anime news. This question, I love asking people because I really want to know what they'd say. After all the years of doing content so far, what would you say is your favorite and least favorite video or videos that you've made in that time span?
Well, the way that a lot of voice actors love to put it, the favorite voice role that they've had is the next one. And because it's always good, it's always good when you're making new content. And that's probably what I would say. But I mean, honestly, I did a whole video where I talked about my favorite reviews for the very last episode of the Cartoon Hero. But like I said, I can't really pick just one. But as for some of the worst videos I've done, it'd probably be any of the ones that I got to remake, because the ones that I remade for Shattered Memories Month in particular, and then there's also the top 10 animated superhero shows list, which was just a train wreck all around. Not in just what I picked, but because I actually had technical difficulties, because I was trying out a new microphone in that list and it turned out to be terrible. So I decided that in order to close out the Cartoon Heroes reviews, I'd do a remake of one of my worst videos and try to make it as good as I possibly could. And I think I did it pretty well.
Last point we got is future content, future stuff that's coming up. You said you got an upcoming review show that's going to be sort of the next chapter of the Cartoon Hero, and also plug in some social medias if you want. So this is basically the wrap up.
It's not the next chapter of the Cartoon Hero, but it will be another story-based review series. But a lot of stuff has to happen before that. Like, I really want to get caught up on the Patreon requests. Not only several of the Patreon requests, but I'm also going to be finishing up the MLP reviews, because I think that after this, unless Mira Series 5 really speaks to me, I'm probably not going to do any more pony reviews after this. And the whole of February is going to be dedicated just to finishing off Equestria Girls, because Hasbro did that show dirty at the end, as I'm going to explain once I get to the actual videos. But basically, in February I'll finish up Equestria Girls, and in September I'll finish up the rest of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. In between that, I'll have stuff like I have a lot of Patreon requests right now. I'm working on finishing up 2, Total Drama Action and Dave the Barbarian. Like I said, I'm not a Total Drama fan, but I did promise the commissioner that I would do all 5 of the first seasons. So basically that's my next long-term project, and I'm only doing like one of those per year. Probably going to pick up the pace starting next year, because there will be less requested reviews to catch up on. Because before I actually start the new series, I'm going to do a series where I basically cover everything that I couldn't get to when I was the Cartoon Hero, but I still want to talk about. I wouldn't be making all these videos if I didn't have a lot to say about a lot of the animated stuff that's come out recently. I mean, I still haven't seen Green Eggs and Ham, and I really want to, because it looks so good. But basically, I'm gonna start moving on to other stuff that I've wanted to cover for a while, and some of which has literally been years in the making. And I do want to finish up the Ace Attorney retrospective at some point. Yes, I am still working on that. But the problem is, like I said, I had a lot of reviews to get caught up on first. And I mostly want to get caught up on the Patreon stuff. And then eventually, once I get a Switch, I'll finally be able to truly say that I finished with the World Ends With You review, because I haven't played Final Remix yet. Square just had to release that after I thought I was done with this huge review that's taken years to finish, and it's like, no, you're not done yet. But like I said, I want to finish off all those long-term projects, and eventually I'm going to start getting into a new story-based review series, but that's going to be a while from now.
Wrap this whole thing up. Social media plugs if you want to.
You can follow me on Twitter at Cartoon Hero Guy. And don't forget to follow my YouTube channel at youtube.com/TheHeroOfTomorrow. I know that my channel is full of trailers, but honestly, that's the best way to keep up with my content, because you can't just follow my Vimeo page, because I have several that I have to jump in between, because I don't have enough for storage space for just one.
Yeah, that's one of the bullshit things about Vimeo.
Yeah, unfortunately. But like I said, I know my channel is full of trailers, but I do try to post as much content as I possibly can to YouTube.
Alright, well, that sums up this episode of SwigTalk Podcast. Like I said in the last Swigga game review, I'm going to try and make SwigTalk monthly. I'm not sure if I can confirm that. I'm not making any hard promises, but we'll see how that goes for the rest of the year. As for upcoming stuff, of course, a couple new parodies are in the works. I'm trying to do a Bad Guy by Billie Eilish parody. We'll see how that goes. Another one I want to do is, it's a parody of This Love by Maroon 5, and it's called A Song About Nothing, and it's going to be a song dedicated to Seinfeld, because I rewatched that show, and it's still fucking hilarious. Hint as to what the next Swig Talk's going to be, I'm going to see if he wants to come on as a guest. I'm going to try and get Sonic Guru, and we're going to try and talk about the Sonic movie. Hopefully we're able to see it in time and do a video together on that, so look forward to that next month, hopefully. Until then, this has been SwigTalk Podcast. MC Swigga signing out, and this has been Eli Stone. Thank you for tuning in, man.
See you later.